Section 680.60 of the National Electrical Code addresses the specific requirements for pools and tubs used for therapeutic purposes. It states that both Part I and Part Roman IV of Article 680 are applicable to these installations. Now, the crucial point of interpretation lies in understanding the scope of Part Roman IV, which is titled Labeled Spas and Hot Tubs. The code language itself doesn't explicitly limit the application of Part Roman IV solely to spas and hot tubs. It specifies that Part Roman IV applies to labeled spas and hot tubs. Therefore, if a therapeutic pool is labeled as a spa or hot tub, it must comply with all the requirements outlined in Part Roman IV of Article 608. However, if the therapeutic pool is not labeled as a spa or hot tub, then the requirements of Part Roman IV do not necessarily apply. It's critical to understand that the absence of a spa or hot tub label on the therapeutic pool is the determining factor here. To further clarify, let's consider the implications of labeling. A product label typically signifies that it meets certain standards or has been tested and certified for specific applications. In the context of spas and hot tubs, labeling often indicates compliance with safety standards related to construction, materials, electrical components, and performance. These standards are designed to minimize the risk of electrical shock, injury, or other hazards associated with these types of installations. When a therapeutic pool is labeled as a spa or hot tub, it signifies that it adheres to these specific safety standards, making it subject to the requirements of Part Roman IV of Article 680. If a therapeutic pool is not labeled as a spa or hot tub, it implies that it may not necessarily comply with the same safety standards as labeled spas and hot tubs. In this case, the electrical installation would need to comply with Part I and any other relevant parts of Article 680, as well as any other applicable sections of the National Electrical Code. It is also important to note that local codes or regulations may impose additional requirements for therapeutic pools, regardless of whether they are labeled as spas or hot tubs. Therefore, it's essential to consult with local authorities and qualified electrical inspectors to ensure full compliance with all applicable codes and regulations. To illustrate this concept, let's examine some practical examples. Firstly, consider a therapeutic pool that is specifically designed and marketed for hydrotherapy or rehabilitation purposes. If this pool is labeled as a therapeutic pool and not as a spa or hot tub, it would generally not be subject to the requirements of Part Roman IV of Article 680. The electrical installation for this pool would need to comply with Part I and other relevant sections of Article 680, such as those related to bonding, grounding, and GFCI protection. Secondly, consider a therapeutic pool that is constructed using the same materials and components as a typical spa or hot tub. If this pool is labeled as a spa or hot tub, it would be subject to the requirements of Part Roman IV of Article 680. This would include provisions related to underwater lighting, heaters, controls, and other electrical equipment. Thirdly, consider a situation where a therapeutic pool is installed in a healthcare facility or rehabilitation center. Even if this pool is not labeled as a spa or hot tub, local regulations may require it to comply with specific standards for electrical safety, regardless of its labeling. These standards may be similar to or more stringent than those outlined in Part Roman IV of Article 680. Therefore, it's crucial to consult with local authorities and qualified electrical inspectors to determine the specific requirements for the installation. Let's delve deeper into the specific requirements outlined in Part Roman IV of Article 680 to understand why they may or may not be applicable to therapeutic pools. Firstly, Section 680.40 covers general requirements for spas and hot tubs, including provisions for access, working space, and protection from physical damage. These requirements are intended to ensure the safety of users and maintenance personnel. Secondly, Section 680.41 addresses grounding and bonding requirements for spas and hot tubs. This section mandates the use of equipotential bonding to minimize voltage gradients in the vicinity of the pool, reducing the risk of electric shock. This involves bonding together all metallic parts of the pool structure, as well as any metal equipment or accessories that are within reach of a person in the water. Thirdly, Section 680.42 outlines the requirements for GFCI protection for spas and hot tubs. This section requires GFCI protection for all electrical circuits serving the pool, including those for lighting, heaters, and other equipment. GFCI protection is a critical safety measure that can quickly detect and interrupt ground faults, preventing electric shock. Fourthly, Section 680.43 covers the requirements for underwater lighting in spas and hot tubs. This section specifies the type of lighting fixtures that are permitted, as well as the installation requirements to ensure safety and prevent water leakage. Fifthly, Section 680.44 addresses the requirements for electrical heaters used in spas and hot tubs. This section specifies the type of heaters that are permitted, as well as the installation requirements to prevent overheating and other hazards. Sixthly, Section 680.45 outlines the requirements for controls and disconnecting means for spas and hot tubs. This section mandates the use of readily accessible disconnecting means to allow for the safe shutdown of electrical equipment during maintenance or emergencies. Seventhly, Section 680.46 covers the requirements for receptacles in the vicinity of spas and hot tubs. This section restricts the placement of receptacles near the pool to prevent accidental contact with water. Now, let's consider how these requirements might apply to therapeutic pools that are not labelled as spas or hot tubs. While Part Roman IV of Article 680 may not directly apply, many of the safety principles and practices outlined in the section are still relevant and should be considered when designing and installing electrical systems for therapeutic pools. For example, equipotential bonding is a fundamental safety measure that should be implemented in all therapeutic pool installations, regardless of labeling. This will help to minimize voltage gradients and reduce the risk of electric shock. Similarly, GFCI protection is highly recommended for all electrical circuits serving therapeutic pools, as it provides a critical layer of protection against ground faults. Even if not explicitly required by code, GFCI protection can significantly enhance the safety of users and prevent potentially fatal electric shocks. Furthermore, the principles of safe underwater lighting and heater installation should also be followed in therapeutic pool installations. This includes using approved lighting fixtures, ensuring proper sealing to prevent water leakage, and implementing safeguards to prevent overheating of heaters. In addition to the requirements of Article 680, other sections of the National Electrical Code may also be applicable to therapeutic pool installations. For example, Article 430 covers the requirements for motors and motor circuits, which may be relevant if the pool has a circulating pump or other motorized equipment. Article 440 addresses the requirements for air conditioning and refrigeration equipment, which may be applicable if the pool has a chiller or other cooling system. Article 700 covers the requirements for emergency systems, which may be necessary if the pool is used for critical medical treatments. In summary, the application of Part Roman IV of Article 680 to therapeutic pools depends on whether the pool is labelled as a spa or hot tub. If the pool is labelled as a spa or hot tub, it must comply with all the requirements of Part Roman IV. If the pool is not labelled as a spa or hot tub, Part Roman IV does not directly apply, but the safety principles and practices outlined in that section should still be considered. Regardless of labelling, all therapeutic pool installations must comply with Part I of Article 680, as well as any other relevant sections of the National Electrical Code and local regulations. It's essential to consult with qualified electrical inspectors and local authorities to ensure full compliance with all applicable codes and regulations. This will help to ensure the safety of users and prevent electrical hazards. In addition to understanding the code requirements, it's also important to consider the specific needs and characteristics of the therapeutic pool. For example, the type of treatments being provided, the age and physical condition of the users, and the environmental conditions in the pool area can all influence the design and installation of the electrical system. For therapeutic pools used for aquatic therapy or rehabilitation, it may be necessary to provide additional lighting or specialized equipment to facilitate the treatments. For pools used by elderly or disabled individuals, it may be necessary to provide additional safety features, such as grub bars and non-slip surfaces. The environmental conditions in the pool area, such as humidity and temperature, can also affect the performance and longevity of electrical equipment. It's important to select equipment that is suitable for these conditions and to provide adequate ventilation to prevent condensation and corrosion. Finally, it's essential to ensure that all electrical work is performed by qualified and licensed electricians who are familiar with the requirements of the National Electrical Code and local regulations. This will help to ensure that the installation is safe, reliable, and compliant with all applicable standards. Regular inspections and maintenance should also be performed to identify and correct any potential problems before they become hazards. This includes checking the condition of wiring, connections, and equipment, as well as testing GFCI devices to ensure they are functioning properly. By following these guidelines, you can help to ensure the safety of users and prevent electrical hazards in therapeutic pool installations. Remember, electrical safety is paramount, and it's always best to err on the side of caution when dealing with electrical systems. Always consult with qualified professionals and adhere to all applicable codes and regulations. The National Electrical Code serves as a comprehensive guide to safe electrical practices, and it's essential to stay informed about the latest requirements and updates. By staying informed and following best practices, you can help to create a safe and enjoyable environment for therapeutic pool users. In conclusion, when evaluating a therapeutic pool installation and its compliance with NEC 680.60, firstly, determine if the therapeutic pool is labelled as a spa or hot tub. Secondly, if labelled as such, ensure compliance with Part Roman 4 of Article 680, in addition to Part I. Thirdly, if not labelled as a spa or hot tub, Part Roman 4 may not be required, but adhere to Part I and other relevant NEC sections. Fourthly, consider local codes and regulations, as they may have additional requirements. Fifthly, consult with qualified electrical inspectors and professionals for accurate interpretation and compliance. By diligently following these steps and prioritizing safety, one can ensure that therapeutic pool installations meet the necessary electrical standards.